Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your award-winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast, and we return on the eve of Spurs returning back in Europa League action. Yes, we're back in Europa League action, of course. Thursday to come. AZ Alkmaar are on the horizon. If you're with us for the first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook too. We're joined by a star-studded panel, returning regular faces. Look how happy they are. Europa League is on the horizon. What's there to worry about? Introducing our panel. Delighted to have this man back on the show. King of Twitter. King of everything Spurs when it comes to words. Billie T's back in the house. Bill, how are you, my man? Lovely to be back on Last Word on Spurs. I'm fighting with you for the mute button, Bill, already. How are you?
yeah, I'm good, man. Sorry, I'm a bit thirsty, sorry.
No problem at all.
Just drinking some Arsenal tears there, which I've been doing all weekends. But I'm good. It's been a delightful weekend. How are you?
I'm good, my man. I'm good. Look, the man who's got words for everything. How quick was that? James Black, be on your guard, my man. Be on your guard. Also on the show, I'd like to have her back on here. Listen, she was with Crouchy on Saturday now. I'm trying to think back. I've lost track of the week. It was Saturday with Crouchy. And wasn't she amazing? The wonderful Jess is at Radio 1's very own. He's back, Jess. Loves if you want to hear. It's been far, far too long. My apologies. How are you?
I know. The invite came through and here we are. Ricky Sachs spoke to my agent. We got a win in the bag and I was like, yes, I'm coming on.
Tough gig. We were trying to plan it where Jess comes on at a good time. So that's why it's taken about a year and a half later.
Thank you. So it feels really good to be back on Last Word on Spurs. Oh, it's my faves.
Oh, bless you. Lovely to have you here. And Jess, can we just say beforehand, so we get this out there, big gig coming up for you in terms of Spurs, in terms of the next international break. Tell everybody what's coming up. Mark it in their diaries now, Jess. Hit them.
Yes, 16th of November, Scorpio season incoming. Not only is it the women's North London derby, which, by the way, last time we faced in the North London derby, we actually won for the first time in history, and this is Spurs women making history at the stadium, actually twice last year. So I mean, it's going to be a good one. We return there. It's actually moved to the Saturday because they're now going to broadcast it on TV. And not only that, but it's also my birthday that day. So it would be nice for everyone to pull through for my birthday party, and a Spurs win would be chef's kiss.
Unbelievable. And Jess will tell you where the after party is. Just follow Jess. That'll be a big one. We'll just follow Jess and where we're going afterwards. Also, look, back on the show, a reminder of who he is if you don't know already. That's right. James Black is back in the building. Leading the orchestra on. I think he was on Saturday. What an orchestra that was, I tell you. Pre-game, post-game. He's back on it. James, thanks so much, bud, for your time. Recovered?
Yeah. It was an amazing weekend, wasn't it? Perfect. Woolwich losing, Chelsea losing, West Ham getting battered everywhere they go. And then the fallout of Woolwich on social media and Billie drinking their tears. How good is that? Yeah, absolute perfect weekend for me, man. Loved it.
Long Saturday, right, James? Early start, a long day that came about in the brickies later on the evening, right?
Yeah, well, I played it afterwards. I played at Bill Nick. So I went to the, after playing at the stadium, went across to the gig at Bill Nick. Had a few drinks in a few different Spurs pubs, watching, and then the cherries on top after that was pretty decent. Loved it. I loved it. Yeah, could do it all again. And then back for six viewings of Match of the Day.
I love that. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, look, again, it's been a good week, and I think, like I say, we take each week as it comes on here as Spurs fans because we're always concerned about what comes around the corner. But James, it's about big weeks. It is a big week for you coming up because something very special is going on in and around the community, which you need to give a mention to. For a watching audience, you'll see this is a very special thing out there that James is doing. So, James, I'll let you take the stage and explain to viewers and listeners what is going on right now for you in the next coming days.
So basically, Tottenham Food Bank is a charity that's very close to my heart. At the moment, the donations are down, and at the same time, the need for their service is up. So I've had a few meetings with the guys at the food bank, and what we've come together with is to provide like an EP of tracks, so every single penny goes to them. It's not like a profit thing goes to them, and a certain percentage we're giving. I'm swallowed all costs, and we're giving every single penny to them. All the tracks were recorded at the stadium. Yeah, it's just a time for. I know Christmas is a good time to sort of start this thing up again, anyway. But after chatting to them at length of what they do, they not only just provide food, they provide like they're a place to go to for people in crisis with the cost of living as well. And to see that place at work, it's the amount of stuff that they do. It's just incredible, and every single penny will go to them. So you'll be doing something for the community, and yeah, just watching them at work is pretty fantastic. What they do, they work all hours of the day. The queues are massive, and they're getting bigger. The donations are right down. So I've been speaking to them and the club about how we can get something going and shine a light. So music itself, again, Jess will tell you, it's quite hard to get quite a bit of money generated. So we're using it for this, for every single stream, constantly, that every penny goes to them, but also shining a light and using any platforms like that we've got here to talk about Food Bank and just how much we need that at the moment. So you can donate by downloading the EP, or you can donate by going to their crowdfunder, which is crowdfunder/p/Tottenham, and every single penny will go to those guys.
Lovely, fantastic. And all those details
There
are
Christmas
in.
number one on there.
Yeah. Christmas number one. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you've been in there, guys. It's fantastic what I do for the community there. It's
Absolutely, yeah, totally agree.
It's
Totally
they did amazing work during COVID when I first really. I mean, I'd known of them before, but when I first really got to see what they do, and they're like it's not just food that they do. It's like any the cost of living crisis, anything that people have got to go in, any problems they've got, they'll find you issues and ways around it. It's amazing what the team do there.
Yeah, man, lovely words there, James. And like I say, all those details that I say Friday that's coming out. Make sure, like I say, you check all the details out on both our audio and YouTube description. Like I say, we'll be giving that again a mention towards the end. But guys, look, we are here. We're recording off the back of a thumping win against West Ham United. Like I say, we've had to wait a while for a big London derby win under Ange Postecoglou. Bill, I'll open up with you. Probably exactly the response that we needed after that Brighton game, which does feel like a long time ago now, thankfully. How impressed was you, Bill, by the performance? And we'll come on to obviously AZ shortly. But I mean, the key thing was, it was the first time Ange really gave the players a real scathing assessment. So it was all about how these players were going to react, how they were going to really take on a West Ham side on London derby, which we know for them, we call it their cup final. For both sides, it's a big game. How impressed was you by the performance, Bill, overall?
Yeah, very impressed, man. I think it's always difficult after an international break, which we seem to lose every single game before an international break. And then we've got 2 weeks to sort of stew on it as fans, which is never a good thing. And we sort of get in our feelings, get in our heads. And you just want the next game to come. And it didn't come. And I think the thing is, right, the performance was excellent, though. The performance was excellent. And yeah, I was buzzing with it.
Yeah, it was a really, really good performance. We make that point, actually, if I come around to you, Jess, that what we want to see from a Spurs side is we want to see them go out, entertain to some degree, but also control games and have almost that feeling that we are confident that Spurs can see out games. I think one of the most impressive things was that despite going behind early, that could have really rocked the side given the lack of confidence after Brighton. And I think the biggest thing I took away was just how impressed I was with the players, the way they responded, because to be fair, the way in which they did come back from that disappointment of going 1-0 down, for me, was probably one of the things that was most pleasing. Same for you, Jess, in terms of the way the guys responded?
It's a bit of a weird thing to say, but I think Spurs fans get it. When we go down at first, sometimes that's a little bit more comforting than when we go up first, because, well, I guess we saw it in the Brighton game. They get too comfortable, and I think what we were seeing in the Brighton game, the reason why it was such an upset, and I can't lie, I sort of did a similar thing, yeah. I was watching and I had my uni girls round. It was a date in the diary that it was the only one that we could do. Obviously, I'm hosting at mine, so I can have the TV on in the background. And I'm watching, and at halftime, I go, yeah, easy, done, that's put away. And I think the team thought that too. So obviously not going to dissect that too much, but I think we sort of did that. And then if we go into the West Ham game, we go down 1. And what's annoying about that is that they did, it was like a bow and cross, and Kudus was definitely the best player on the pitch. And they did it once, didn't go in. It was great, Vicario save. Did it again. And that's what's annoying for me. But I think that the point is that the reaction was learning what to do and how to maintain that and control that. And the tactical change, I think, was probably the biggest talking point across the entirety of the game. I think we have to really put a lot of emphasis on the fact that Madders wasn't playing badly, but the tactic was that Sarr would come on and work better with Bissouma and allow for different things to happen. And I actually think it was done in the best way possible, because you've got someone like Madders who you're never going to leave alone. So you get him running them ragged in the midfield. People get comfortable. And then you've got someone like Sarr who plays a completely different game. And it's like, what do these people do with him? I don't know. I'm a team sport player, and I always come from the perspective of someone who's on the pitch. And the first half of the game, you're getting used to like how people are playing, like what positions people are, like just second, like knowing where this person's going to go. Madders is going to try this. He's going to do this. You get Sarr to come on for the next 45 minutes. Your head is probably gone. And I feel like it just unlocked a lot of doors. I also think Sarr can come on with a lot of energy. Madders, there's no way you're not starting a player like Madders. I think Andrew's done a really good job of maintaining, I don't want to say egos, because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying Madders has a mad ego, but he's our vice captain. You can't not start him. And Sarr is going to come on as young, fresh legs with a lot of energy, which he did. And I think, I don't know. I think in answer to your question, the reaction was like everything that we'd want. Obviously, you don't want to go 1-0 down at any point, but as a Spurs fan, you're kind of used to it. Can't lie.
Yeah, especially at home, and we do seem to have a decent record under Ange when it comes to being able to reverse, going behind early on. And I think that's one thing, James, again, we talk about a reaction from the players. I think that would have been one of the most pleasing things I said to Jess there, that, we've seen Spurs, teams go 1-0 down in London derbies in the past and quite easily fold. I think the great thing about the performance that we saw on Saturday was the way in which the players responded. And again, it answered a lot of questions to whether the players are still, very much behind the manager, which again, I think when we saw that second half against Brighton, it was a real concern, the drop-off, as Jess has already touched upon there. Would you say, James, that was the pleasing aspect, the way in which we took control of that second half and really took the game away from West Ham in a scintillating 8 minutes where we scored 3 goals?
Yeah, I'm definitely the same as Jess, and it's in a weird way that when we go 1-0 down, it's a little bit more comforting, especially the way that we're playing. It's unbelievable. So,
not every week though, James.
I'll say one thing about you. Yeah,
it's not for us every week, bud. I don't mind one, sometimes, not all the time. God, not in these cup games coming up, please.
No, but I'll admit one thing, and that's when he made them changes, and it's coming off the back of that second half of Brighton, and he's taking Maddison off, and we're at 1-0, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? This is silly. Like, we need to be. This is why I'm not a manager, and he is. We need to be creating. We need to be getting more and more chances. When Maddison come off, apparently statistically, he'd created the most chances in the Premier League in the first half. What he'd done, and he assisted Kulusevski. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is just going to go bad. But I was not only wrong, I was so very, very wrong, and I'm glad I was. And I think it was when we see it playing out, and it's easy to say now. There was a big gap with Kulusevski and Maddison a bit higher up, and that gap was being exploited with just Bissouma and the back four behind him. We play such a high line anyway. That was probably the problem and part of the reason. But we've now got like we've got now got nice problems. The questions will be asked about who is the midfield and who do we start. And Jesse's right. How can you drop somebody that's a vice captain with, as in Maddison? But we've got Bissouma, we've got Bentancur, we've got Sarr. We've got Bergville, maybe Archie Gray playing as a number 6, maybe on Thursday. We've got so many there, and I think the answer will be different oppositions for different players there, not just to rest either. Like somebody can unlock something that someone else can't. But thankfully.
But I think the perspective on this, how we always used to say we have such a thin bench, and we used to say how we have first team and then we have the bench, whereas now we have all of them are first team, and we have the luxury of choice according to what happens on the pitch.
And he seems to be able to keep keeping most of them, apart from Dragusin's agent, happy. Like, really, it's just most of them are happy. Apart from that one idiot.
I will come on to Radu shortly. I will. I know it's fine, but no, I'm glad you brought it up, because, like I say, I mean, again, it's a week where there's been comments through in their heads, and like I say, I mean, I think that's the one thing, as we know with any kind of squad, especially in the Premier League, that trying to give everybody adequate game time and keeping them happy can be quite tough. So Ange has got the job there to do that. And talk about Ange there, Bill. You know what? There's been a lot of talk about, the start to the season, as you're well aware of. I mean, again, I think it's fair to say that, there's a lot of people that are very much on board with the project. There's some that still need convincing in terms of this second season. But I did want to have a look in terms of what Spurs are looking like and shaping up for this part of the second season, because it's quite easy to look at the fact that when you look at Spurs' first 8 Premier League games of last season, 23-24, at this stage they had 20 points. They were top. It was 6 wins. It was 2 draws, 0 defeats. They scored 18. They conceded only 8. This time around for Tottenham, when you're looking at what they've done so far, 24-25 season, they've taken so far 13 points. They're sitting 7th at the moment. Obviously, they've had 4 wins, 1 draw, 3 defeats, 18 goals scored. That mirrors obviously last season at this stage, and they've conceded just 1 more. But I think it's really important that if you compare our first 8 fixtures to the actual same of last season, so you take those fixtures like for like, Spurs have actually got more points. They've scored, they've won more games. They've scored more goals. They've conceded less. There's more shots on goal. There's less shots conceded. There's a higher XG average. There's a lower XG average when it comes to against them. I mean, all the signs, Bill, do seem to be pointing to the fact that we are improving. Are you feeling that at the moment, Bill? I know it's hard to cast your mind back because we were top this time last season, but do you feel patterns of play-wise, you can see clear progression after these first 8 games?
Yeah, completely, man. I think, pretty much every single league game this season we've dominated. I think we've got the second highest average possession in the league. I think we've got 62%, whereas Man City are 63%. And obviously Man City are like a freak team, one of the best to ever do it. So I think anytime you're in line with them, you're going to be looking good. And I just think the way that we're approaching games, we're dominating the ball in every single game that we play at the moment, whether that's against Arsenal, whether it's against Leicester, whether it's against Newcastle. There hasn't been a game this season where we've been under the cosh the whole game in the Premier League, which I think is a big difference to last season. Tail end of last season, we were, it wasn't a pretty watch at times. And I think every game this season we've dominated. I'm a stats guy. I've got a maths degree, and like the underlying stats are really good. The performances are really good. Now, hopefully, the results will come too, because as much as stats tell you something, they don't reveal everything. And the stats are really frustrating to look at when you're not winning. So, as long as we keep winning and keep dominating games, I think we're in for a good season. I think one telling stat for me is, Arsenal are going out playing every single game with 4 centre backs and 3 DMs, and we've only conceded 1 goal less than them, 1 goal more than them at the moment. So. Yeah, everything's looking rosy at the moment for me. But, I've always backed this manager. I'm a huge, huge fan. And I think we're finally seeing the performances and the results to match.
Oh, man. Lovely words there, Bill. I mean, Jess, not to put any pressure on you, not only did you have Crouchy next to you, you were trying to convince me. I thought you had After South stand next to you for TNT Sport behind you, trying to convince us all that we have had a decent start to the season.
Genuinely, that was wild. That was wild.
I was thinking, you weren't going to get any pushback at all. I mean, you were trying to be really convincing there, which, to be fair, we have improved in terms of, there's no doubt about it, patterns of play. There's no doubt about that, Jess, in your mind, right?
I think the bigger picture is becoming clear now. I think also, and just famous last words as well, like saying into international break how he had some time, and straight after the game, again going back to Brighton, but like straight after the game wasn't the time to be talking to them like properly. But then when he said he was ready to explode, I was like, these kids need to get serious. Think about it. They're like, think about where you were at the age of 22. That's what we've got half of this team playing at. And they're like, and then we've got on the bench, like 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds. That's even pre-uni. Like these are a bunch of kids who are incredibly talented. And he needs to like manage this in a way and actually build this picture and say, you need to take this seriously. Like when you're going up in a game, there's a lot of psychological things that go on. Like I'm going to talk a really, really random example, but the England women's rugby team have not lost a game since their New Zealand Cup final like years ago, and they have a specific psychologist to work with them because the competition in their heads is between them, not the people on the pitch anymore. And they're actually preparing them for their first ever loss. And I'm just thinking, like, in the same way, we should probably have, well, I don't know if they do have a specific psychologist working with the team, but I think they actually should, because like the mentality on the pitch, it's not that we don't have the talent. Like I think Saturday showed that we do, but there are sometimes like lapses in judgment or like holes that need to be filled, and it's just when people switch off and you're working out all these different players' motivations on the pitch. And I've gone on a mad tangent, but I think that basically with Big Ange, we are seeing this big picture like slowly like tighten up, and this is why I said the key here is patience. And I know that's really hard to say to Spurs fans, because everyone's been so bloody patient for so long. But I think that it's coming together and we're seeing glimpses of it and we're seeing amazing football and at the top level. So I'm happy with it and I'm happy with where it's going.
I definitely don't want to, tread on Billie's feet here because he is the comedian here, can I just say? But when Jess was going on that psychologist there for the players, I thought, what about for the bloody fans? They need a psychologist, didn't we? Most of us every week after what we were having to watch and
Ricky,
see.
this is the therapy session. You're the psychologist. You're just getting underpaid, my friend.
God, if I'm the psychologist, God help the patients. On this point you say, Jess, you know what? You're making a good point here. If I look at someone that, this is from outside the Spurs community here, and their feelings about Ange. This is Alice from Alice Talks Football, who says that I'm a little jealous watching this Tottenham side at the moment. They have one of the most exciting projects in football right now. The squad is packed with young, top-tier talent, incredibly fast football, direct and thrilling to watch in possession. Their pressing game is relentless with real technical quality and unpredictability, all built around a pure focus on attacking football. And it's interesting when you kind of get glimpses from other fans here. And HLTCO is a Palace fan. Maybe he's writing this on purpose before he faces us on Sunday. But he says optics are a strange thing. Prior to the collapse at Brighton before the international break, Spurs had won 5 on the spin. They scored 13 goals and were only conceding 3. And they fell apart of the Amex and everybody was labelling Ange a fraud whose rigidity and refusal to tweak things would be his downfall. They've come from behind to beat West Ham 4-1 with Maddison taken off, Sarr in a tactical change, which was followed by 3 goals in 7 minutes. In reality, they're a highly entertaining, energetic front foot side who have a real defensive headache, but will far more win than they lose. I simply don't buy into the view that Potter's career to date is less fashionable in this league. If he means he'll succeed in England, at least he has the courage of his conviction. So it's interesting because from outside influences coming in, there is a feeling that Spurs are on the right track. But I mean, I think as we all know here, guys and girls, it's all dictated by results, isn't it? It's a results-based business. And the reality is that we'll be judged, in terms of AZ Alkmaar come Thursday, or again, will be judged against Palace on Sunday. You obviously, of course, haven't had a win yet. And I'm sure we've already been in WhatsApp groups where there's a doctor image floating around, the Spurs image going around saying, we'll see you now. Billy's part of that podcast. We don't hold it against you, Bill, for the name of that podcast. Dr. Tottenham are lovely over there. But you wouldn't be a Spurs fan, I think, as James said off there, if you wouldn't be slightly concerned by the fact that the next team we're facing, AZ Alkmaar, they're winless in 4 and Palace are winless in 8. So we've got an opportunity to firmly put to bed any tag or label. But what I want to ask you about, Bill, if I can, is the form of Dejan Kulusevski, who I think at the moment, if you ask any fan in the Spurs community, would probably say he has been our player of the season so far. And I think we're always a little bit concerned to go too above ball because we know form can always change with players. But Bill, you've seen, not the age, you've seen a lot of Spurs players in your time. Just how good is Dejan Kulusevski performing right now for you in a Spurs shirt?
I'm not going to withhold. I think Ballon d'Or shouts. Let's get him out, man. He's the way he's playing at the moment. It's insane. On a serious level, though, he's kind of reminds me at the moment. And I don't make this comparison lightly of Harry Kane. When Harry Kane was in his best form for us, it was almost like he was on a different wavelength to all of our players. And Kulusevski's sort of in that sweet spot at the moment where he's so unbelievably good. He's making our other players look average. I think maybe Maddison suffered a little bit from that in the first half. Because he's almost like a one-man team at the moment. He's getting the ball, he's beating players, he's assisting, he's scoring. He's playing at an absolutely insane level. And I think he's off the back of that Man United game, which is one of the best individual performances I've seen for Tottenham since, Harry Kane at the Etihad, that kind of level. And he's doing it week in, week out. He's carrying his own national team at the moment. He's captain. I genuinely think he's one of the best players in the league. I can't think of many players in the league this season that have been better than him. I think he's right up there at the very top of the echelons of the Premier League at the moment. I truly believe that.
Yeah, Can I second this as well? I feel like I feel like it was a bit of a weird thing to say, but I was discussing this the other day that Kulu was giving Harry Kane vibes, not just in the focus on the pitch, but also in his interviews and how he was coming across, how he was working on his craft. Isn't he? I think he's like 26 as well, but he's so much more.
I think we're aging him. I think he's 24. We are aging him. Yeah.
He's the same age as Foden, which is crazy.
I think that's wild to me that he's got this head on his shoulders. I think he's giving future captain, really. But I just think as well, he knows his strengths. And I know he's not the fastest person on the pitch, but he moves so quick in his decision making, in what he's going to do, whether he's going to hold up a player. Like, he's got a lot of strength. It feels like he's been really, really honing his craft. And I feel like in that sense, he's given so much of what Harry Kane was offering as well.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up there. I mean, James, I've been a bit reluctant on previous shows because I've made this comparison once before that when Moussa Dembele was in his prime at Spurs, like Bill touched upon there in his intro, there were very few players that were on the same wavelength as him. And, you know, Jess has touched upon it there as well, that the way Dejan Kulusevski is playing at the moment, you know, it's very hard to not see a case where I think you've said this, James, as well, that I can't see him not being at the moment Spurs' player of the season just by the judging of these 8 Premier League games so far and in all comps. And I think the key will be is just if he can continue this form, because if he can continue it, I mean, God, it's almost crazy how we have not found this role for him before. I think, as Billie, said it on here previously, you know, we deployed him in a similar role against Sheffield United last season where he turned the game on its head.
3-1.
And why is it taking so long, James, to get him in this position? I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, really?
Weird is the best bit about this, or as I'm coming from a Tottenham fan, is he is really the closest that I have seen to Moussa Dembele. And that, for me, he's an iconic hero, Moussa Dembele, for me. So it's, again, I know the guys are saying Kane. They're absolutely right what they say with Kane. So it's being a mixture of both. It's just how good he's playing for us at the minute. But how strong he is on the ball is just incredible. Watching back the highlights and seeing just even that, what he does off the ball when we're watching in the stadium, it's just amazing. It's maybe he isn't in the run for the Ballon d'Or because, honestly, I can't say enough amazing things about him. He's absolutely brilliant. But I would say he probably, when he was on the wing, if we'd have kept playing him on the wing, he was getting a little bit found out. And that was when he scored his goal from that position, I think, against West Ham from that kind in the wing. But yeah, I think he was getting a little bit found out there. But what he brings to that central role is absolutely amazing. He turned that game on against Sheffield United. It was incredible what he did. And I always think about that God bless Paratici tweet from that Italian journalist when things like this come out, and it's just getting funnier and funnier and funnier by each time he's playing.
I just want to shout out his sister as well, because he said every time he has a bad game, his sister rings him up and slaps him off. So
yeah,
it's just get to the ground, man. He's going to play of the season.
Good on the sister.
Carlo Gangresi or something.
Yeah, that's the guy.
That's
and
a big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I respect him because he's not deleted it yet. To be honest, I respect the.
That is good.
Yeah, on this point, you know what, Jess, you mentioned earlier about the word ego. I know you meant that in the way in which, you know, players have got to have some form of an ego to be the best they can at their game. I want to ask you about James Maddison and where it kind of leaves him at the moment. You know, we had a bit of a chat on a WhatsApp group where I think you said over the weekend that you were a bit uncomfortable with some of the criticism he was getting based on the fact it was almost like one game. But I mean, I think what Andy's going to find, I won't use the word tricky now, but it's a good selection headache, is that can he continue to play both James Maddison and Kulusevski together, or will it be a case of one or the other? Because look, I think we all make the point, rightly so, Maddison looked frustrated at the weekend, like he would do. Look, any player coming off when it's tactical and not injury related, he wants to play every game. He's a footballer that's come to Spurs to be one of the main players in the team. He's a vice captain, of course, not going to be happy coming off. How do you feel Andy's going to handle that in the coming weeks? Because the good thing is we've got plenty of games coming up, as we know. So is that just a case of finding a way in which they can accommodate together, or do you see it as one or the other at the moment, in your opinion?
I just don't see it as we've got our first team, that's the starting team, and the other person comes off because they're tired or they're injured or whatever it is. I think we have this mad flexibility that if you change that at half time and the other team doesn't have another team talk to do to be like, how do we deal with this problem? It's an insane amount of flexibility that we can have in one game. And that is what I think people were calling for and saying that Ange wasn't good at, was making subs tactically, or like the subs that people want. And I think that now we have this structure where he knows who works best with who. And it's essentially like he can play two amazing teams. Again, like, just think about how much the dynamic of our going forward and everything changed within the space of one game, and that was at half time. We went I don't know, I just think this isn't a problem. I think this is an answer to what we were saying the whole of last season, where we were saying we don't have any options. If we go through cups and have extra games and international break and all of this stuff, the players are playing too many games, blah blah blah. Well, if you have Madders playing half and Sarr playing half, they can run ragged for 45 minutes and go as hard as they want. Yeah, obviously Madders isn't going to be too happy coming off at half time because he didn't get on the score sheet. But I think that's a fine thing to feel. Like, if I was playing a game and I came off at half time and then the end score was 4-1, I'd be like, oh, that is a game that I really should be on the score sheet. And I think that's fine to feel frustrated at that because you want to play more minutes. That's hungry. And I don't see this as a problem. Like, I don't. And I think Ange is actually managing it so far really well. The only person who obviously seems upset in a way that's not on board with the system is probably Dragusin. And I know you said you're going to get onto that. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame, but I also don't blame him. He's not been playing. So, yeah.
Yeah, which I would just say also, we'll come on to Dragusin shortly. I mean, can't get away from the fact that bloke did get himself sent off against Karabag. So, I mean, he would have had the opportunity to play more in terms of European games. He probably would have had the Ferencváros game and he played, but I take your point there, 100% Jess on that. Before we do come on to him, James, just very quickly on the Maddison, I say conundrum, if you want to call it that. I mean, this is the key, isn't it? How Ange does handle the egos, because with no disrespect to him, I don't, again, he's handled different players. He's obviously been the manager of the Australian national team. So he's used to handling players that want to be playing football. But the key is that what's interesting about Maddison is that what we have seen recently is a frequency where doesn't always tend to finish games. Has been brought off, in terms of when Spurs are chasing a winner, chasing an equaliser. As Jess says there, it's the vice captain of the football club. And if that's a guy you got your high hopes on, what does James think if he's being hauled off in those moments? Can you understand why there'd be an element of frustration for him? And does that concern you long term with regards to how that will work itself out? I'll have to bring you off mute, bud.
Off. Hi, guys.
We gotcha.
Yeah, I think I apply value to what Jess is saying about, like, it's a squad rather than three, and that's it. And I think every player can see that as well. But with Maddison, he started the season really well. I think he felt that pressure from Kulusevski coming into his role, probably in the training and pre-season, and also us buying or getting Bergvall and having that pressure right at the start. I think he had a great pre-season. I think he had a great game against Leicester. He was fantastic, I thought. And I only drew that game, but I thought he was brilliant. I can see that. I can see exactly the same as what Jess is saying. I think we've now got some serious contenders in that midfield, like not just in the number 10 role, but we've got some serious contenders there, and that can only be good for the team. And I know he's a vice captain, so he should be sort of helping the younger players like your Bergvalls. And I think if you've got in this number 6 position itself, is you've got Basuma, Bentancur, Gray there, and you adding in Sarr and Maddison and Kulusevski. Kulusevski is completely undroppable now for me. So there is huge competition, and there'll be times and there'll be games when we can't be playing two number 10s the way that we play it. And if we can't be playing two number 10s, I would rather be seeing Maddison than Kulusevski. I'd rather be seeing Kulusevski playing over Maddison there. So it's going to be some tough times maybe for him too. But then the competition is there. You're playing. He'll start hopefully on Thursday maybe if Bergvall is. I think he's had a knock, Bergvall, and he's not quite 100%, but he was on the bench when he against West Ham. I could see him maybe starting on Thursday. And then giving Kulusevski a rest. But I don't think that Ange talks to these players in, there's my 11, there's the bench. I think he talks to them as in, we are going to win this game. And I think the players are buying into that. He said something along the lines of, once the players believe what I'm doing, and they can believe it, and they didn't believe it in the second half against Brighton, then it doesn't matter about the outside noise. It doesn't matter about the press and social media and what everyone's saying. As long as these players are believing it. And he's absolutely right. And they'll go to war for him. And I think that's actually, when you turn around a game like we did at West Ham into a very easy win with them changes, that's just going to even heighten the belief of this. And I was one of them non-believers when Maddison was coming off. And I'm so glad. Not non-believer in Ange. I'm a massive fan of Ange.
Yeah,
as I'm sure you know.
It was a bold call. Wasn't it? It was a bold call.
Yeah,
to be fair,
a strange one, but it worked completely.
Yeah, I mean, I read a crazy stat actually that Maddison was producing a creative point in the game every 7 minutes. So it wasn't like Maddison was having a bad game. It's just, as we mentioned, that tactical adjustment had to be made, and it was the right one because Spurs won the game. And we mentioned that point there, Bill. I mean, I'm really keen to ask you that point on Maddison before we look and discuss Sonny and then move on to AZ. But how do you feel he's going to be able to adapt and deal with that? Because like James says there are going to be games where we're not going to play both Maddison and Kulusevski together. Do you think that will really set the fire in James alive that he's going to really fight for his first team place? Or is there any concern with you it might go the other way? I mean, what's your thought? Because the thing with Maddison is that he's used to playing games. He's used to being the focal point at all the respective clubs that he's been at recently. He wants to work his way back into the England squad. And it sounds like he might have a battle for his Spurs place at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's just what happens when you're a big football club. Like we're hopefully acting like now. For the first time, we've got genuine squad depth, and that's what happens. If you look at Man City, you never know week in, week out who's going to start in their midfield. Foden gets benched, Grealish gets benched, sometimes De Bruyne gets benched. And when you're at the very top level, you have to be able to pick a mix with these footballers. And I think, to be honest, the only nailed down spot at the moment is Kulusevski, and the rest is it going to be Bissouma or Bentancur, is it going to be Sarr, is it going to be Maddison? And I think it'll be game by game basis. And against West Ham, where they're a bit more physical, I think Sarr was needed in the second half. Against Crystal Palace at the weekend, who are really struggling at the moment, I'm almost certain Maddison will start again. So I don't have any concerns from it at all. I think competition is really good, it's healthy, and he'll get plenty of minutes and plenty of chances. And like I said, I think the only nailed on starter in the midfield at the moment is Kulusevski, and then two others.
It's interesting, like I say. I mean, we've all cried out for this, haven't we? We all want competition for places and to be able to give players, the opportunity to rest. I mean, one player that did come back into the starting lineup and made a real good impression was Heung-Min Son. I mean, Jess, I think we've been calling out for a long time that for Sonny, we know his quality, but I think he was really in need of a rest in a bizarre way because he didn't go well on the international break. He ended up having about 3 or 4 weeks off. And to be fair, Son came back. He looked absolutely refreshed and recovered. I mean, is that the Sonny that we love? I mean, do you buy this, Jess, that he's going through any sense of a decline at the moment? Is it just a case of Sonny has been overworked, overplayed, and with all due respect, he's taken across all quarters of the world when, other players have got the opportunity to rest at times?
I'm probably a biased person to ask because I'm literally a Sonny super fan. But I think that you pretty much nailed it on the head there. I can't remember the last time he didn't have to go out on international duties, and when he does that, we've all seen the videos and the photos and the stories about him going back there. It must be a lot, just even the amount of attention that he gets when he goes home, the pressure on his shoulders, the fact that people are even talking about whether he's going through some sort of decline. Actually being able to go away and legitimately switch off is, I think, obviously what he needed. But we did need him back on the pitch, I can't lie. I think that Brighton game would have been totally different with him on there. And I think that, it pains me to say it, but I don't think Romero and Madders have been stepping up in that captain role in his absence the way that back in the day when Sonny stepped up when others were away. I don't know. I think that everyone serves a purpose, and he's a really amazing captain in keeping everyone gelled together and lifting spirits. I feel like you can really tell it on the pitch. I think people like Vicario are really vocal in trying to lift people up, but from what I've heard about Vic, he's quite brash. And has been quite direct in a negative way as well as a positive way. So it's not as positive as perhaps Sonny's voice. And then you've got Romero, who I think sometimes when things aren't going so well, he gets frustrated and maybe takes things onto his own shoulders rather than gels people. I don't want to actually slag them all off because it is good, but I just think we miss Sonny, that key ingredient with Sonny. But yeah, like you mentioned, he looked so refreshed, and I've never had so much euphoria over a goal, a final goal on a 4-1 win when really we had it in the bag anyway. But that, what was it, a triple step over was just so beautiful. I think it was just Sonny at his finest, taking on a keeper and just showing everyone what he's got and that he's still got it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I totally agree on that. I mean, James, you also underestimate the fact that he's now reached 250 goal contributions for Spurs. He's the 9th all-time Premier League record for most goal contributions for one Premier League club. He's now above Alan Shearer for Newcastle. I mean, it's no mean feat. I mean, James, I know you're a Sonny fan. You love him. I mean, is it a case, James, where at times there does need to be an element of rotation and rest there? I mean, they have got Richarlison now. They've got Dominic Solanke in there now. Does this now give us an opportunity to not have to play Sonny every single week, or do you feel there is always going to be an over-reliance on Sonny because of what he can produce?
Yeah, I mean, definitely that Brighton thing, that capitulation would have happened with him on the pitch. I don't think it would have. And the minute you saw Sonny do that first step over of however many it was, you knew it was going to be a goal. And there's a massive, huge difference between Werner being in that position and Sonny. So for me, like, there is a massive reliance on him, and as Jess was saying about his characteristics as well, and having him in they go to war for Sonny. I think. Do you know what I mean? They'll go. But going through that team now, Billie mentioned about Kulu being a captain of Sweden. You've got like Kulu there, captain of Sweden. You've got Basuma, I believe, is the captain of Mali.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Romero's vice captain, Madison's vice captain, Sonny's captain, and Vicario's like a shout up. They are starting to hopefully. Yeah. I think this is just a blip, that second half against Brighton. When you look at the 5 games before that, yes, Coventry was a bit of a rubbish performance, but that was wholesale changes. There's so much to be positive about. But yeah, with Sonny himself, we are going to always be reliant on someone like that. But what I would like to see on Thursday is Sonny rested again and Mikey Moore given the chance, because I think, although I don't really want to think about this, it's going to hurt more than Kane when it comes to the point where we are saying the end of towards Sonny's in 15 years or whatever it's going to be.
I'm going to mute you.
Mikey, come in. Just say you mute me. Mikey,
I don't have the power to mute you.
But
I have, Jess. Don't worry about it. I've got it. Don't worry.
Yeah, a time's going to come, whether it's 5, how many years. And Mikey Moore coming through is the person that I'd like to see. And I think blooding him against these European games and is the one. And I don't think the answer is Werner. And don't know. That's the big thing that kind of challenges me. It's I know Werner's got the pace, but Mikey looks fantastic, and he's fantastic off the field. The way he talks in interviews, he's got a maturity to him. He's one of our own, and the fans are behind him already. That's going to be a lovely coming together. And maybe he's not the one to replace Sonny just yet, Jesse. I'll be quiet about that.
You know, it'll be really interesting, I think, because there will be clamour, Bill, won't there, for more to start more games, pardon the pun. Because
Thursday,
I mean, like I say, the Europa League does give that opportunity for the likes of Gray, for the likes of Moore, for the likes of Bergvall, Lancashire to be featuring. Is that how you sit in your mind as well, Bill, that you want to be seeing players, when we come on to Europe in a second, be given that opportunity to feature in that competition? Because, look, there's decent European sides in there that have gone, fairly advanced in this competition in many recent years. But it is about, as Jess and James have alluded to, giving regular game time to players and making everybody feel part of a squad.
Yeah, and I think it's important to get the balance right, because I've said all season, I don't want anything more than the Europa League. I think that should be our main priority. We've given ourselves a bit of a cushion now by winning the first 2 games. So I think we could afford to rotate maybe a bit more than we wanted to. In terms of Timo Werner, I've just been watching the American election campaign. I saw Donald Trump in McDonald's, and he's left that now. Maybe we could send Werner to McDonald's for a week, because that cameo against West Ham, man, honestly, just put the fries in the bag, bro. It's over. Get Mikey Moore on the pitch. But do you know what? I'm actually pretty confident in the fact that I think Werner's going to start on Thursday. I really do. I think Werner's going to start.
I think it's got to get game.
Werner needs a goal. Werner needs a goal. That
was such a pity sub as well. He brought him on 4-1, 10 men, and he was stinker.
The thing
is, so hard to watch.
The Werner's wages, I think he's the second highest paid or third highest paid or something like that.
But you know what's interesting, Jess? You say there, Werner needs a goal, and I'm not just saying this to listen. I support every player that wears the shirt, wears the badge, that goes out and gives. What I will say about Werner is I think he's given absolutely everything in terms of his commitment on the pitch. I just think, unfortunately, the quality and his confidence is absolute rock bottom. I mean, it's not a lack of trying, it's not a lack of commitment. It just looks like the guy is so out of form and out of confidence that he looks, when he's on the pitch, just a shell of the man that he obviously was back in Leipzig when he first was there. Because you can't, when you look at him, Jess, and I'll let you come back on this. This is a guy that it's hard to believe it. This guy was scoring on a regular basis for Leipzig. He got, I think, top scorer in the first season there. He obviously came to Chelsea, never worked out, went back to Leipzig. I mean, it sounds like, Jess, you still feel there might be some hope left in the tunnel here for Werner.
Look, I trust Ange. I actually put probably too much trust in this man, more trust than my own family. But I don't believe that he would start Werner or put him on the pitch if he genuinely wasn't training well, if he genuinely wasn't producing results on the training pitch. There's just no way in hell. he needs the confidence of a goal on the pitch. I think actually when he's playing a game, it's just a completely different ball game again. Excuse the pun, but it just upsets me to think that it is his own fans that is actually holding him back, because at the end of the day, I think it is like there's no way he's turning up to training and not delivering, because otherwise why is he getting minutes? Like, it's just, to me, not possible. Like, it's I heard someone say like it's not a charity. I think it was on maybe a previous pod about him, and they're right. Like, there's obviously something there, but I can't lie, every time he touches the ball in our stadium, you hear a collective groan, and there's no way he doesn't hear that. There is no way in hell. I actually think he'd probably score more goals if we all turned around and shut our eyes whenever he got the ball. But it's annoying.
We're doing that. We're doing that at the moment, Jess, aren't we? We're turning.
I know. I can't. It's so hard to watch. And I, like you, Ricky, will support anyone that is wearing our shirt, because at the end of the day, he's part of the team.
Of
but
course.
It's got to the point now where people are. It's almost like they're watching him. It's watching like a wounded animal, basically. It's just not fun. And I think that maybe the answer for him is to be a big dog in a smaller club. But it's obviously the pressure that's getting to him, because I will not believe that he's turning up to training and not delivering and still getting minutes on the pitch. That's just not a possibility for me.
Again, you make some really valid points there. I think the key is that, look, my worry is that I don't even think it's even if he gets a goal. I just look at him and think I'm not sure. I think sometimes you go past that with players, that he looks so underconfident in himself that, look, you're right, Jess. What doesn't help is the fact that he knows when he does get the ball, there is that kind of collective groan in the stadium that something is going to go wrong. And I mean, Bill touched upon it there in a jovial way, but he somehow managed to dribble out the ball out of play by himself, under no pressure against West Ham. It was nobody around him. So, like I say, it is difficult when you're seeing a player going through that and he's one of your own. You want to support him through that. You want to see him obviously come through that. But when we're 8 games into the Premier League season, we're overall 11, 12, 13 games in.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see it, because he's not starting anymore when he was starting. And I actually think his confidence was better when he was starting. I kind of want to reply to some people in the comments, because lots of people are saying that Werner's stealing minutes from Mikey Moore. And I know that we all want to see Mikey, but again, let me just remind you, think about the times when you were like, how old is Mikey? 18?
Oh, it's 18, 19. Yep.
18, 19. Think about where you were at and what things affected you, like how self-conscious you were, how any sort of comment might really trash your self-confidence in a way that you still think about it 10 years on. Like, I think you have to be really, really careful with the memories that you're creating with these kids, and like the fact that they're coming on and getting minutes is creating positive and good memories on the pitch. And you just don't want to knock someone's confidence that early on, because again, with the Archie Gray was running across the box and just like dribbled around the players at the end of the game. You've got to remember they're coming on in the final few minutes when everyone else has been run ragged and not going to expect someone to just dribble it round them. Like, it's good that we're putting positive like energy and positive memories and positive clips in people's brains, but you can't be starting people who are teenagers on a pitch like this when they don't have the experience. And if you think about it, someone like that coming on halfway through a game or like towards the end of the game are going to have so much passion, so much hunger and so much energy. If you have someone like Werner coming on, you just already saw that his confidence was shot before he'd even come on. And so you start someone like that who has like the more of the history and more experience, and then you take him off for someone else who's newer. I think we're doing it the right way around. Unfortunately for Werner, he just needs to bloody put it in the back of the net.
He does.
For God's sake. Just pretend like no one's watching, all right?
I mean, go for one.
Everyone, just shut your eyes when he's on the ball, right?
Everybody cover their eyes. Everybody leave your sleep.
I do anyway, Jess.
Listen, we talk about charities. Forget like Make-A-Wish. Just make a cross, and then like forget Oxfam. Just put it in the box fan. Do you know what I mean?
Give the EP away to Timo Werner.
Bill's here all week. From one player's confidence to another. Brennan Johnson actually has been speaking about the fact he's come off social media and it wasn't a big deal. And he's actually credited Ryan Mason with how much of an improvement that has been in his game when it comes to his finish. And he said, I've been doing a lot of work in Mace when it comes to picking up on different positions, different type of finishes, what kind of part of the foot I'm hitting with, also dribbling and shooting. So a lot of thanks must go to him because he's been helping me a lot there. He also touched upon the fact that he recently came off social media. He said it wasn't a massive issue in my head. I think it's been made out to be quite a big thing when quite really it hasn't. It was just a split decision in the moment where I thought I'll just delete it, which I have kind of done before when I deleted the app. And this time I thought I'd just deactivate my account, but it wasn't a massive deal for me. And actually, just to follow on the back of point that Jess made earlier, I just feel for me, it's really, really sad that a player's got to close their own personal social world due to criticism from fans. And I will make the point that I still think, the criticism for Brennan at the time he got it, I don't think there was from genuine Spurs fans that go week in, week out. You just wouldn't do that to one of your own players. And I think the sad thing I felt was on the back of that win against Coventry, which James touched upon earlier, you could just see Brennan, he kind of gave a single clap. He just didn't look comfortable. And the great thing is you can see Brennan has really started to build that bond now with the Spurs supporters. I mean, look, very unlucky not to have 7 in 7, of course, at the weekend. An unbelievable effort on a volley, which on another day does go in. But Brennan does look like he's full of confidence at the moment. I know, again, there's still question marks around can he do it against the big sides? And those questions will always be there with players until they do hit the bases on a consistent level of scoring against the big sides in the big games. But look, Brennan got a goal against Manchester United. There'll be talk about where United are in terms of a big club status, but we have to, give these players time, as just touched upon. And it is a young group. I think, again, sometimes we forget that. It's, I think, an average age of around 24. And that's not to make excuses because, look, the reality is when the manager comes out before the start of the season and says, I want us to be in a title race, then naturally fans are going to gravitate towards holding the team then to account and seeing where we are. But look, I think the overall picture is we can see progression. But I always say this, it feels that results kind of dictate our moods week upon week. And I think that is just where football's at in general now. And we know, like I say, we're going to come on to AZ in a second. We've got 2 games in a week against sides that are winless in 4 and 8 respectively. And the key will be many fans expect us to turn up and blow these teams away. And we know as Spurs fans, it's not just as easy as that because we've been accustomed and conditioned to, knowing that's the case. But at the same time, players are on form. And at the end of the day, you want to see them doing well, as Jess says in the shirt. Before we do go ahead and look at AZ, the guys I touched upon it earlier. We've had, a few reports coming over about Radu Dragusin's future in these past 24, 48, 72 hours about the fact that Napoli are one of the sides that are apparently monitoring Radu, but the player will not push for a move away from the club in January, despite his agent suggesting earlier in the year that his club will look to leave the club if he didn't become a regular in the team. Now, on the eve of this show, I'm not saying this was done purposely. It might have been done. The agent has come out and given the latest update of where we are on Radu's future. And he said, look, right now, we are not interested in approaches from other clubs. And I don't think Tottenham want to let him go either. I mean, talk about shaking somebody. Can someone shake this bloody agent? I mean, God, I've never known an agent do so much talking like this. The guys have been here less than a year. I mean, Bill, thoughts?
This guy is a generational yapper, honestly. I've heard more quotes from him than I have my own mum in the last few months. It's like, honestly, even when he first signed, he was talking about how he can't believe that he chose Tottenham over Bayern Munich. It's like, that was on the day that he signed. I hope we send him some Paratici dirty money in the bag just to shut this guy up. We need some hush money because this is getting annoying. But I think it's a difficult one for Dragusin because he's simply up against the two of the best centre-backs in the world, and Mickey van der Ven and Romero. He's more suited to play left centre-back, right centre-back. And it's really difficult to displace those 2 players. They're outstanding players. They're world-class. Dragusin has great potential, but he's not world-class at the moment. He certainly could be. And you think with the Europa League, he'll get more opportunities, but then he kind of fumbled it when he got sent off. Yeah, so it's a difficult one. I think he's just got to hold his nerve, hold his line. He'll get plenty of opportunities this season because we do have so many games coming up. It must be frustrating, but again, when you join a top football club, that's what happens, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, Jess, on that point there, do you think he has been lucky to not have had more minutes, or do you think it's a case of where Ange kind of in his mind seems to know his first choice pairing has been Romero and Mickey van der Ven, and it has just been a case that Dragusin has just certainly got to wait for his opportunity? Where are you on that, Jess, for you?
I think it's really tricky in sort of any sport. You've got forwards and midfielders who you can interchange just like that. like we saw at the weekend, you can change a midfield that is working, but tactically think, you know what, let's switch it up. You don't do that in defence. You just don't. Like, it's not something where you switch every like 5 seconds or think, you know what, this is like a better tactical pairing. Or I think you have to be you really do have to have the luxury of choice if you do that. But I think a pairing at the back, they need to know exactly what they're doing, where their person is, how they play, and it's not a static role, like especially as we've seen in Spurs, like they push forward, and so they need to like really know without even thinking properly where everyone is on the pitch. I think Dragusin came in at a time where we were obviously really nervous about Van de Ven, how his injury was how long it was gonna be, and we needed a backup, and I think we still do need a backup should anything happen to our defenders. But ultimately, he's come into a position where one of them's well, they're both world class, aren't they? Like Van de Ven is always like player of the match, and also pushing forward. I don't know. I just think it's a really tricky position. You're not going to be replacing Romero and Van de Ven. They're like the best defenders in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's an interesting point there. I mean, look, James, you've got the vice captain in, of course, Romero. You then got Mickey Van de Ven, who, to be fair, is so critical and crucial to the way Ange Postecoglou wants to play his football. The crazy thing is, as we know, like, you know, there has been an improvement definitely defensively of Spurs this season from set pieces. No getting away from that. I think, you know, Jason McGovern, bless his heart, will always tell me, I think we've only had one conceded out of the last 55 corners. You know, so when we make this point about Spurs being, you know, what's the right word? Concerning from set pieces, it just shows you that, you know, despite all the narrative and the feelings out there, it actually hasn't been that bad. I mean, do you feel Dragusin has been unlucky to not get more minutes, James, or is just touches upon there? That is just the nature of the fact. Defence, you don't tend to change it much, whereas in midfield last season, I think we changed it around 28, 30 times, crazily enough.
I think a lot of this noise is coming from the agent, probably, and not the player. So that's the first thing. And I think the other thing is that the agent and the player both knew when he did sign that you got the player of the year, wasn't it? But Mickey Van de Ven was player of the year and a World Cup winner in Romero. The two, I'm with Jess. I think they're the greatest centre backs in the league. So when you're coming into that, you know when you're coming into that's you do your due diligence. Surely, even that idiot agent would have had a look at that. So you know that coming into that situation. So he was always going to have to be waiting for his chance, and he did get that in the Europa League. And yeah, he made a bit of a false start there, which to be fair was a tactical red card, which he did get. But that's 7 minutes in, and then he's got like these missing the next game. Yep. But he will get his minutes. I'm sure he'll play on Thursday, to be honest with you, and he will get his chances. And but yeah, you're up against Van de Ven and Romero, so you're always going to be on the bench and trying to get your chance. So for me, I hope there's no problems there. He's an incredible one to fall back on if there's any injuries and stuff. But the other thing is, it's not like the midfield rotation. I don't think he's rotating these defenders a lot, is he? Especially in the league, that he's got his top two defenders. That's who it is, and maybe that's where the frustration comes from. He doesn't just want to be like a defender in the Europa League. And I wonder when we get into the knockout games if he'll revert back to Van de Ven and Romero. I'm not too sure, but I can see his agent's frustration trying to get more money, but. Let's stop listening to him. Just wait till he says a quote. Do you know what I mean? It might not be even true. We don't know. I mean, yeah. I guess I can see his frustration, but Mickey and Romero, they're the best defenders in the league. So,
yeah, you know, I get that. I do understand your point on that, James. I mean, there will be that argument, Bill, that just again to make devil's advocate here, as well as Romero over time and Mickey Van de Ven have played together. It won't get away from fans the fact that Romero has made a number of high-profile mistakes this season. Given me saying that, do you feel there should have been an opportunity for Radu to come in and maybe contest that place, or do you feel that was never going to happen? Ad was never going to drop Romero, and you know we've seen actually recently he was asked about Christian and the fact that you know he himself has been really disappointed of the way he's handled some of those moments where there have been some high-profile mistakes. I mean, was there ever a looking for Radu that he should have had more games at this stage, in your opinion, Billie?
I don't think so. Just because Romero is so integral to what we do on the ball. You know, you could make a case that he's not been the best defender, certainly lost concentration for a few of our goals this season, ball watching a little bit. But so much of our build-up play goes to Romero, and Dragusin just doesn't quite have that in his locker at the moment. He might develop it for sure. He's only 21. He looks about, I think it's misleading with Dragusin because he looks a lot older than he actually is. He's only 21 years old, or 22 years old. But I just think Romero is too essential to the way that we build up. I don't think you can replace that at the moment, and I don't think we will be replacing that in the Premier League. So I think Romero's, had a bit of a frustrating season at times, but he's still one of the first names on the team sheet for me.
Yeah, and like I say, we'll see how that does play out because it's Spurs, and like I say, we're still a way away from January at the moment. But again, I think as the guys have touched upon in there, and the girls, of course, he will get more game time between now.
Ricky, I think Romero's made like the most forward passes in the Premier League as well. I think I saw something recently where he's got crazy statistics about the way we play out the back. So yeah, Billie's right about that. I think.
Yeah, again, the thing on that point is you're right, James. I think the thing is, fans will hold into account that. Again, there's some comments coming through here that Romero, to be fair, although he's obviously, regarded as one of the best centre-backs in the league, if you look at the high-profile mistakes he's made for Spurs, you could arguably say he's cost the club 4, 5, 6 points. But going back to the point we said earlier, I just don't see Ange Postecoglou dropping the vice-captain of the club. He adores Romero, loves Romero, and if there's any opportunity to play him, he will. So I think you make a very important point there that a lot of the build-up play Spurs do is through Romero having that ball, like you said there, and really taking the team forward. So he's pivotal to the way I want to play, Bill. I can see you eager to come in on that point.
Yeah, I was just going to say another good stat as well, that Vicario is the only goalkeeper in the Premier League not to take a single long goal kick this season. In 8 and 9 games now, he's never done a single long goal kick. So it's obviously like it's a non-negotiable for him. We're never going to go long for goal kicks. We're always going to go to Romero or Van de Ven or Porro. So it's essential to the way we play, and it's not going to change.
I remind myself that when I'm actually tearing my hair out when I see Vicario trying to play out with a back, I'm thinking, why didn't he just kick us long?
Not a single one this season. Not one this season. That's crazy, right?
Got a great hat as well. He's got a great hat as well.
Vicario.
I love it. Yeah, unbelievable.
I actually think Romero is really important. I think sometimes we forget, rather than just the actual physical stats, someone who actually filters their energy filters out to the rest of the team. He is so fiery, and I know he's calmed down a lot since the beginning, but I just don't think that if you're playing anywhere near Romero, you can't put 110% in. You're just not gonna work hard for your vice captain, someone who's putting that much energy. There's no way you're going to be near him and playing and switching off.
And a World Cup winner, and you're playing next to a World Cup winner, that sort of thing. You're standing next to one, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff rubs off, I think. So he was the fault, quite a few of the goals, but yeah, I think he's a massive part for the forward play as well.
I think regardless of what we think, we can see Ange the way he obviously regards him. He obviously is going to be in his mind undroppable because of the way he speaks about him. So look, we'll update you more on Dragusin's agent. Like Bill says, I'm sure there'll be more coming out in due course. What we are going to do, we are going to squeeze in our.
You should try and get him on, mate. He'll give you a break.
Oh well, we could maybe get him on the next international break. Give me a full-time break, maybe. Fingers crossed. I might get him on a cover of the Man City game if it goes all wrong. Tits up next week, Bill, maybe? What do you reckon?
His sister as well. Just get it both on him.
Just do a solo pod for 2 hours talking about
Just let them take control and have a break. Sounds great, guys. We'll hook it up and do that for a couple of hours. What we are going to do, we are going to squeeze in our last break of the show for our listeners on audio. You're going to hear from Mike Orange from the, I believe, the English version of the... where am I going with this? Dutch football podcast, who very kindly is back on the show after a 3-year hiatus, who reminded me the last time we were speaking, Spurs were in the Champions League, and have since then revisited every competition you can imagine in Europe. We've had the conference, which we got to qualify from, and then we're back in the Europa League. Lovely little journey. Mike will tell you more about our opponents to come on Thursday. We're going to look at them right now, as Spurs will be looking to continue their 100% record in Europe as they go and seek their third win on the bounce. And as we touched upon it earlier, Spurs are in a fairly good position when it comes to the Europa League at the moment. They're placed third in the table, 2 wins out of 2. And look, it is early days, but you've got to go quite the way down, actually all the way to the bottom to find AZ Alkmaar, who at the moment coming into this game are currently, at the moment, winless in their last 4. They are undergoing probably their most difficult period so far under their respective manager, Martin Merton's side. And the run they're on is actually their worst sequence in 22 years. And I'm not going to go to saying Dr. Tottenham would see you now, because we don't want to do a double-double on the back of that with Palace coming on Sunday. But Spurs have the opportunity, I've got to say, to, of course, get a couple of comprehensive wins under their belt. And it's interesting because it will see the return of Troy Parrott. Of course, Troy left the club in the summer for AZ Alkmaar, where to date he has scored 6 goals in 11 games in all competition. 4 of those goals actually came in all one match for them in a domestic league game. Bill, casting your mind back on Troy Parrott, any surprise for you that he left the club in the summer? Do you feel that was the right move for him? What do you feel is the future for Troy Parrott?
I was maybe a little bit surprised it was a permanent deal because, you know, he had a pretty decent loan spell. I think didn't he score like 4 goals in his last game for the club he was at the end of the season.
Yep.
But I'm happy for him. I think the fact is we've got a really good succession of strikers coming through. I know Dane Scarlett scored for Oxford today and at the weekend. We've got Will Lancashire, who looks fantastic. It's just one of those things, sadly. I just think he's probably not quite going to cut it with us, but I wish him all the best. He seems like a really good character and a decent striker, and maybe, it's really hard to cut it in the Premier League, I think, and maybe just, scoring week in, week out in the Dutch league, maybe that's his level, and good luck to him. Wish him nothing but the best, and look forward to seeing him again as long as he doesn't score on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have got a tendency of welcoming back players that always do seem to find the back of the net against us. But for Troy, like I say, not a bad return so far. But again, a reminder, those 4 goals, they came in 1 game and respectively scored the other 2 in all comps. Now, like I said, for Spurs, in terms of facing Alkmaar on Thursday, it's a side that aren't in the greatest run of form. And I think the key will be, Jess, coming over to you about the selection. You've touched upon the point that you expect some rotation. How heavy do you expect the rotation to go, Jess, when we've got Palace on Sunday, London Derby, a team that are also out of form at the moment? Who would you like to see on Thursday that maybe isn't getting some football at the moment?
As everyone has been saying, everyone's excited to see a bit more of Mikey Moore, aren't they?
Yeah.
I just, again, to go back, I would love to see Timo on the score sheet. I know that's not going to be. I find it weird that I'm prefacing this with it not being a popular opinion, but I think these are his chances. If he's still at the club, this is where it's at. And if AZ are at the form that you're saying, then this, surely of all the chances, this needs to be it. Maybe put him on with some of the younger the youngsters, and there might be some sort of like fluidity, there might be some sort of new energy. Maybe he'll step up in terms of maturity and having been just much more experienced on the pitch. I'm wanting to see him win. Like, that's what I'm going to say. And I'd also like to see Brennan back on the score sheet.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? We've also seen, James, obviously the return of Richarlison in those final minutes against West Ham. I presume that's a player that probably this is a great competition for him to get those minutes. I mean, how much changes do you expect, James, for Thursday? The Europa League, to be fair, because of the fact we have got back-to-back wins. And I think you've said again previously with us that, it's a bit of an anomaly as to how many points Spurs will need to get in this competition. But the reality is that if they win their home games, they're pretty much all but there. So in terms of selection-wise, James, what do you want to see on Thursday?
I'd actually like to see Richarlison. I know you put him up there, and the reason being, when Solanke does a hell of a lot of work off the ball, and you can see that when you're in a stadium, it's not just the work that you see in the build-ups or the immediate build-up to the goal, but the pressing and the footwork from him and the hold-up play that is a little bit, some of it's a bit akin to Kane that we've been kind of missing out on. Although he's not getting all these goals that we kind of expected early on in the season. When he did get injured, I think we missed that. So I would like to see Richarlison in terms of getting him up to speed, but also I'd like to give Solanke that rest before Palace. And I think that it'd be good to get a couple of goals for Richie under his belt. So if there isn't issues with Solanke, he's got some minutes under his belt. Really, he's not really. Is that his? When did he last play? It's been quite a while for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been. It has been.
I know he played a bit at West Ham, but I mean, when did he last start?
A long way into last season.
Yeah, it was quite a bit, wasn't it? And he had that form, didn't he? When before his injury, about 5 games back to back.
8 and 8, wasn't it? 8 and 8. He had that great run of form where he scored 2 at Goodison Park and was
a beautiful goal against Everton, wasn't it?
Yes.
So I'd like to see him in play. I personally would like to see Mikey Moore out on the wing. I'd like to see Dragusin just to rest the best hamstrings in the Premier League before Palace. So I'd like to see Dragusin do that. And then I wouldn't change Vicario. I'd like to see Gray in the 6.
Yeah.
And Bergvall, if that knock isn't too bad, I'd like to see Bergvall as well. So 4 to 5. But when I say about these changes, as I'm saying them, it doesn't seem to me like there's a great change in how good we are. It's not like a great dip there.
Yeah, that's a really important point. You talk about it there, James, that you come back in that the quality of drop off.
Yeah,
it's not so a couple of years ago when under Nuno there was like a B squad. It felt right. James?
Yeah. Well, Billie was saying like to act like a big club and to be like one of these big clubs. This has to happen. We have to have that strength in depth that we can sort of tinker around. You don't know what that midfield's going to be. It's going to be a surprise. You can't build up against it because you don't know what that 3 is going to be. And
yeah,
I think like Gray was so good as a 6 for Leeds against Chelsea before we bought him. I must see him. He kind of ruled that game.
Yep.
So seeing him there for a full game, it would be amazing. Love the way he took the mickey out of Bowen towards the end of that West Ham game, that little trick. But I think he'd be great in there, and I'd like to see Bergvall too. And in the middle, maybe Sarr. But yeah, so quite a few. But I definitely don't want to be changing for Kaya out for Forster. I don't think that works. I think there's a big drop off there.
Yeah, there is.
In terms of playing out from the back as also, and if there's a penalty, he's just not going to move, is he? So yeah, that's
just on that point, James. Please make me feel better. He won't pick Forster next week in the Carabao Cup, will he? That will kill me.
Oh, mate, please not. I think he's learned his lesson. But isn't that the fact that he picked Forster? Isn't that one of the reasons that we can't take Spence?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a bit of an issue. But
all I would say is maybe, I mean, that decision was made before the Coventry game, where again we all witnessed Forster. I mean, again, in retrospect, if he saw what Forster was looked like against Coventry, would he have done that? I don't know.
Yeah, but in Jess, right, surely like he must be doing great in training, Forster. But he wouldn't just throw him in just for the sake of it. Like he must be seeing things to go right. He's okay. He's ready. But
must have a stunt double in there, James.
Must have a stunt double, yeah. But Jed Spence signing that contract now proves that I think he's going to rethink that for the knockout phase. I think we can change it for the knockout phases, can't we?
That's right, yeah. They'll have a few more spots, which will mean that it will give the opportunity for Spence to come into the squad.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
That for everybody, when you're speaking to Spurs fans, I think that is the biggest question mark and most confusion point of it. That how is Jed Spence not getting these games in Europe? Because whenever Spence has come on recently out of the Man United game, he's looked really impressive. And again, he would have been on the weekend had he not had a knock. So, yeah, I mean, like I say, it'll be interesting. I presume Spence, if he is fit, probably will play against City in the Carabao Cup. As we touched upon it off air, that we're probably expecting a few light changes to the team. I mean, Bill, coming over to you just finally on this, when you're looking at their form overall out AZ Alkmaar, like I said, they've come off the back of their winless in 4. It's their worst run in 22 years. They actually defeated Elfsborg on match day 1. Then they seriously struggled with the increase in quality of their opponents. They then travelled to Atletico Bilbao, who are a club very rarely fail to win at home. And they had to face a dominant PSV side over the weekend as well. They've losing to both Utrecht at home and Fortuna Sittard is where disappointment has been lying for them. So they've really had a poor last few weeks, AZ Alkmaar. I mean, how do you see this one going, Bill? Any concerns for you and rough changes you'd like to see for this one?
Listen, the more negative stats you say about them, the worse I
feel. I'm getting more worried. I better start reading these. I'm getting more worried here.
I don't want to disrespect them because they're the club that gave us Vincent Janssen, so I've got to hold it up to them. And Moussa Dembele also.
Let's not go too far.
So, I mean, this. I don't think we should have much trouble. Famous last words, but I don't think we should have any trouble beating these. And I think it'll be a comfortable victory, to be honest. And thank you to Moussa Dembele and Vincent Janssen along the way.
Please, for the love of God, please.
Everybody quickly goes to that Vincent Janssen post now. Quickly rip it down if you haven't done it before. Get it down, rip it down. Right. Shall we be brave and get double predictions as well for Palace? Shall we be brave?
Yeah.
Although James is getting shorter and shorter and shorter as I say that.
When please start mentioning the statistics, I'm thinking, oh my God.
It'll disappear off screen before I get the Palace prediction. Shall we go for our prediction? See how we get on. I mean, in terms of injury news for Tottenham, look, we know we're without Jed Spence. We're probably going to be out Wilson Odebear. He'll be back in for contention the week after. And again, you're probably looking at, as Billie touched upon earlier there, and James touched upon earlier there, Radu Drăgușin will come back in, which will calm the agent down for 5 minutes, no doubt.
Let's go for predictions. Is Odebear out for Palace probably as well then? Is that right?
I think it'll be touch and go. I mean, I think the reports on Odebear was that he'll be back in training towards the end of this week. So again, we're probably waiting on a update from Ange and his presser, who will let us know, of course, where he is. But I'd be really surprised if he's in contention to start against Palace, but probably maybe in the squad, James. Which again, I think, again, probably ahead of schedule. We heard, again, with Spurs, I think they're very cautious about any kind of injury time frame because obviously, naturally, we hold them to it, which who would ever do that? Let's do predictions. Bill, we'll go to you. AZ Alkmaar.
4-0, mate. 4-0. No problems whatsoever.
Okay. And Palace on Sunday?
2-0 to Spurs.
But 2 Spurs. Just double checking, Bill. Just double checking. Jess, what we going for?
Oh, I am gonna say 4-1 because I just the way we play. I just don't think there's ever a clean sheet on Thursday. I'm going to be watching from the studio because I have my show on Thursdays, and then on Saturday I want to see a
or Sunday.
Wonder goal.
Could be Sunday.
Sorry,
no
weekend. I want to see a Porro wonder goal because I think it's been too long since we've had one of those. Always want Son on the score sheet, and I want Solanke back on there as well. So I'm going to say 3-1.
Okay. So we've got double wins at the moment. Will James make it a full house?
Well, I'm going to say 3-0 on Thursday.
Okay.
And 3-1 against Palace. So yeah, I'm going for 2 big wins as well. I don't think the Dr. Tottenham will see you now will be this weekend. So I think we could be. This is obviously keywords, guys. We could be sitting here on the back of 3 wins going into the Carabao Cup tie against Manchester City. Could be is the key. Will we is another question. Make sure for those that need the therapy, you go and check Billie's T's Twitter handle. That will give us plenty of that, no matter what happens in these coming games. Bill, where can they find you?
Yeah, just Billie_T on Twitter, and look forward to seeing what madness our club brings for us in the next 3 games. 3 competitions, 3 games. Bring it on.
You're going to keep us calm, Bill. Mate, thank you so much. Lovely to have you back
Anytime.
on.
It's my pleasure, guys.
Bless you, mate. Like I say, pleasure is all ours. The wonderful Billie T, who we turn to in the moment of madness. We always look at that Twitter and think, okay, we're Spurs fans. We're all right. We've got Billie T. We're relying on him. Jess, thank you so much. A reminder, Jess, big, like I say, couple of weeks for you coming up. We've got, of course, the stadium gig, obviously for North London Derby as well. You're back on the radio. Where can they find you, Jess? Tell them where they can find you.
Radio London, Thursday nights, 8 till 10. Radio 1, Sunday nights, 11 till midnight. BBC Sounds is where to go to catch up on all that good stuff. North London Derby, 16th of November. It is my birthday, so come along. And last word on Spurs, probably another year's time.
No, listen, we're going to make it happen. We will make it happen soon. We have been trying. We have been. Like, diaries aligning. I've got to say, all the best birthdays in November. You know what I mean? Jess, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure. We'll be having you back on very, very soon. God, I tell you what, you can tell me lives a really busy life here. James, what's in your diary apart from travelling the world? An EP coming out on Friday. What's going on? Where can they find you? What's going on? Remind us again.
Thursday, I'm at the Stadium Shelf Bar, Block 1, Level 1, Block 120. Friday, the EP's coming out. Please donate to Tottenham Food Bank. There'll be, if you come to any of my socials, you'll see where to donate and the crowdfunder link. They'll be dropped, and it's just live from the stadium stuff that I've done. So please donate where you can for that. And the weekends, I think I'm going to have it off and just enjoy it and have a few drinks. But yeah, the tour's coming out great. I'm going to different places now. We're going to America, going to Canada, going to Dublin, Denmark, Norway, all to the official supporters group. So I've got 3 dates left to fill out for the tour. So if anyone's interested, drop me a message. And yeah, thank you very much. That was an amazing panel and top first class, and I'm honoured to be a part of it. And great show.
You, mate. What reminds me when I get a panel like this, I think, God, how boring is my life? I just think, God, having kids these days, love them all by heart. God, we've got people travelling the world on radio, on DJ, and it's all kicking off. Right, I think, Bill, I'll come one of your classes. I'll calm myself down and become one of your classes.
Halloween disco season on Thursday. I'll see you there, mate. £2 entry.
See you there.
Get free raffle ticket.
And the Halloween party. We'll come to the Halloween party.
Yeah. Why not? We'll fit it all in.
Welcome, as long as you're 7 or 8 or 9 or 10.
I might need to come to that after we crash out of the Carabao. Don't do that to me. We can't. We've got to win it. Only the season's on the line. I want to say, guys, a massive thank you to the over 3,500, 4,000 of you who watched this show live. Again, can't thank you enough for all your support for Last Word on Spurs. Please go to check out our wonderful panelists, Billie T, Jess, Iszatt, and James Black. We've been the Last Word on Spurs. We're back with you for instant reaction after Spurs on Thursday in the Europa League. As always, please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.